I am your host, Leah Dunlap, and you are listening to the Oracle on Purpose podcast, where we help intentional leaders clarify their purpose and next steps to create a work and life of significance. Hello, friends. It is me, Leah Dunlap, the Oracle on Purpose. I'm here to share hopefully some insight that might give you a little bit of relief if you are feeling frustrated and stuck and wanting to understand why the law of attraction, manifestation, goal setting isn't working for you, or you think it's not working for you. Because the reality is we get what we expect. We don't get what we desire. We get what we expect. So even if you have a desire and you have been practicing all of the tools in your toolbox around manifestation, if your expectation based primarily on the past is that you will not receive, or that this doesn't happen for you, or that these things happen for other people, or it's hard, then that's what you'll get. And that's what you'll get more of if you continue to focus on what you are hoping will happen rather than believing and desiring and expecting the best. That's an old adage too with manifestation. I think it was actually even spoken about in The Secret, which is kind of one of those big name manifestation movies of many moons ago, is that you get what you expect, so expect the best. On the surface, it seems really easy. Expect the best, and that's what you get. Except that our subconscious mind is creating and extrapolating from our past what to expect, right, in our lives. It's looking around every corner, if you will, for the next shoe to drop or the danger that might be lurking based on past experiences. So if we don't understand or look deeper into what we really believe about an experience that we desire, then we are going to continue to fall short. And the worst part of that is that when you do that, you're affirming the very expectation of failure, right? You are affirming that the failure is obviously going to happen because it's happened again. And it happened again because it happened before, and that's what you expected. And so your expectations and your desires are out of alignment. So what do? What can you do, right? It feels as if sometimes that the deck is stacked against you. But the reality of it is that that's not true entirely. We have the capacity to change what we're thinking, to look at that subconscious playbook, if you will, and rewrite it. It's just that we have to stop and be intentional. We have to take the time to really dig into what's going on and understand that we have the power to make that change happen, to look at what we've thought in the past was true and re-examine it. In the Master Creators Guild, we often talk about what we believe about a thing, where it came from, where that belief started, and whether it is true, right? Whether it's actually based on fact, or whether it is something that we've taken on from someone else, like it's been fed to us either by society or our family or our parents or teachers as true, or whether or not it was an error in thinking that has just perpetuated itself over and over and over based on some sort of fear, right? So an energetic shock, if you will, that caused us to anchor in the belief as true. And when we look at these aspects, we can start to say, well, if it's not true, if it's just not true, if it's something that somebody told us once upon a time, but when we rediscover it and look at it a little bit deeper, we understand that it's not actually a truth. It's not a fact. It's something that somebody told us. So we took it as fact. And if it's not a fact, then we can change what we believe by reinstating the actual fact. That's one thing. If it is something that we, for whatever reason, believed because societally it was spoken as a story, right, as a communal agreement about something, we can then choose, right, we can be in choice
Does it align with what we want? Does it align with who we are? Does it align with where we're going? And if so, then we can look at it from that perspective. If it doesn't, then we can choose not to agree, to move away from the status quo, if you will, and make a different choice based on our own personal alignment. To me, that's a higher level of authenticity, which I will call self-sovereignty. Self-sovereignty to me is to say, like, this may be true for you, but it is not true for me. And I choose not to base my life and my actions on that story anymore, right? I have a client, I love this client, she's amazing. And we were talking about this concept of, the thing to do is to get a job, get married, have kids, like that's the traditional story about what a woman's role could be. And that's taken a long time to kind of unwind that and move away from it. And yet, in doing so, she's had more of herself engaged in joy, more of her time, more of her energy engaged in things that make her happy in her own self, right? So that's that sovereignty of self. So that's the second one, right? If the story we're telling ourselves isn't really true because it's just something everybody's saying, then we can change that. And the last piece is sometimes these things, we believe them with a kind of as a triggered response to something that we experienced. And in doing so, we then set up a cascading effect of actions that almost feel subconscious. They almost feel like automated in how they show up in our lives. These can be, at first glance, seem like they're a little harder to overcome or to move away from. Except that if we understand that that's what's happening, then we can find the vibrational match for the counter to that. So if I, had an experience that, let's say I actually have this experience, that grasshoppers are dangerous because I watched this horrible movie when I was a kid with these grasshopper creatures in it. And when I was younger, if there was a grasshopper, I would just freak out. It would just make me so uncomfortable. And many moons later, I went to see my sister in Montana, and she had this big field between her house and her photo studio, which is this old barn. And I had to walk through this tall grass, and all of a sudden I heard this noise. True story. I heard this noise, and all of a sudden the entire field just started moving, and up hopped all of these grasshoppers. I mean, so many. It was like locusts, but not really. But it felt like that for a second. And I was like, okay, I'm an adult. These are just tiny little grasshoppers. They're just doing their own thing. They're not here to bother me or harm me. And it was the longest walk. But as I walked, I changed that story. I said to myself, I'm okay. I'm fine. It's weird. It's a little uncomfortable. And then I moved from uncomfortable to it's no big deal. I'm just walking. I'm focused on where I'm going. And by the time that I crossed through the field, I was kind of laughing about like how much power that old story, that old belief that they were dangerous had played in my life, in like holding a whole part of me back. So it behooves us, right? It's powerful to use that tool to rework that system inside of us. And to me, when we understand that those parts of our automated system, our subconscious mind, affect how we actually create what we desire, then we have to understand that by moving those pieces, by removing them, by transmuting them, if you will, we have the capacity to bring ourselves better into alignment with the desires that we really have, and to avoid that story of breaking down the expectation that we will not achieve what we desire, that the desire that we're holding out for hadn't happened previously, so therefore it won't happen again, right? We can break that cycle and make sure that when we have a desire, that the belief system behind it is that we expect the best of it. Even if forever ago or constantly before it didn't work, that this time it absolutely can be different. This time you can expect the best result. And that when you do, and your desire is aligned with it, then you will manifest it. And it will happen like that, right? So it's a way of collapsing not only the time, but the energy with which we manifest is heightened as well. So remember, right, if you find yourself fighting with this, if you've always thought that for some reason the law of attraction or manifestation doesn't work for you, perhaps this may be a piece of that puzzle. So I invite you to look at that and ask yourself, what do I really expect? When I have this desire, what's that expectation that comes right behind it? What is the expectation? And is there a lie I'm telling myself or a belief system that needs to be removed so that I can actually align with my desire and receive and manifest at a higher speed? All right, thanks so much for watching. Again, I'm Leah Dunlap. I'm the Oracle on Purpose. I want you to remember that you are here on purpose and that your desires matter. And I hope that you have the capacity to shift your expectations and find yourself allowing yourself to expect the very best.
Thanks for tuning in to the Oracle on Purpose show. If you found value in this episode, we'd appreciate you leaving a comment. Also, you can subscribe and ring the bell if you haven't yet. If you'd like to get clear on your highest vision and next steps, go to oracleonpurpose.com. See you next week.